What happened to Israel during the reign of Hoshea and why? This is the question we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of 2 Kings on walking through the Bible. Today we're going to be discussing 2 Kings chapter 17, verses 1 to 12. Before we do that, let's read the passage. If you have a Bible with you, turn to 2 Kings chapter 17, verse 1. But if you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So 2 Kings chapter 17, beginning at verse 1. In the 12th year of Ahaz, king of Judah, Hoshea the son of Elah became king of Israel in Samaria, and he reigned 9 years. And he did evil in the sight of the Lord, but not as the kings of Israel who were before him. Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, came up against him, and Hoshea became his vassal and paid him tribute money. And the king of Assyria uncovered a conspiracy by Hoshea, for he had sent messengers to So, king of Egypt, and brought no tribute to the king of Assyria as he had done year by year. Therefore the king of Assyria shut him up and bound him in prison. Now the king of Assyria went throughout all the land, and went up to Samaria and besieged it for 3 years. In the 9th year of Hoshea, the king of Assyria took Samaria and carried Israel away to Assyria, and placed them in Halah and by the Habor, the river of Gozan, and in the cities of the Medes. For it was that the children of Israel had sinned against the Lord their God, who had brought them up out of the land of Egypt, from under the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And they had feared other gods, and had walked in the statutes of the nations whom the Lord had cast out from before the children of Israel, and of the kings of Israel, which they had made. Also the children of Israel secretly did against the Lord their God things that were not right, and they built for themselves high places in all their cities, from watchtower to fortified city. They set up for themselves sacred pillars and wooden images on every high hill and under every green tree. There they burn incense on all the high places, like the nations whom the Lord had carried away before them. And they did wicked things to provoke the Lord to anger, for they served idols, of which the Lord had said to them, "You shall not do this thing." Over the last few lessons, we have been discussing the chaotic time period of the final years of the northern nation of Israel before the Assyrian captivity. After the death of Jeroboam II, 3 kings in Israel had been assassinated, and the instability actually led to a fracture in Israel, where the Menahem led pro-Assyrian allied part of the nation, while Pekah led the pro-Syrian allied part of the nation. However, after Menahem's death, Pekah killed Menahem's son and reunited the nation again, but this action led to the Assyrians attacking Israel and Syria, completely wiping out Syria and further weakening Israel. It was after this battle that Hoshea the son of Elah assassinated Pekah and became the 19th and final king of the northern nation of Israel. Verse 1 of chapter 17 says that Hoshea became king in the 12th year of Ahaz, king of Judah, and reigned 9 years. This presents a problem, for 2 Kings 15:30 says that Hoshea came to power during the 20th year of Jotham. Now, when we discussed that passage, we noted that the writer of 2 Kings likely did this because he hadn't introduced us to Ahaz yet, and so said the 20th year of Jotham as a stand-in for the 4th year of Ahaz, meaning Ahaz's sole reign there. If this were true, though, why does 2 Kings 17 verse 1 say the 12th year of Ahaz and not the 4th? Well, there are a couple possibilities. One is that we have a copyist error here, and it should say the 4th. And while that is certainly a possibility, I believe there is a better explanation that fits with the entire narrative, which is that Hoshea had a power struggle after assassinating Pekah that lasted about 3 years. And if then you count from the beginning of Ahaz's co-regency with his father, 12 years, you come to the period of about 728, 727 BC. Hoshea reigning 9 years would thus be counted from the time he assassinated Pekah, and would thus end in about 722 BC. But when he came to power would be counted about 3 years later. Why is this a better interpretation? Because Hezekiah is said to have come to power in the 3rd year of Hoshea. And when you fit his chronology into the mix, you find that Hezekiah was co-regent with his father beginning in about 726 BC, which, if counting from the beginning of Hoshea's uncontested reign in Israel, would be Hoshea's 3rd year. So as you can see again, chronology in this section of history is difficult, but can be figured out if we closely examine Scripture and understand what is being talked about. All of this places Hoshea's ascension to the throne, albeit contested, at around 731 BC. At the time of his ascension, then, Tiglath-Pileser was king of Assyria, and Hoshea was a vassal of Assyria, paying it tribute after the death of Pekah in order for Assyria to not come and destroy it. Hoshea is said to have been an evil king in Israel, however, not as those who went before him. What does this mean? Well, it means that he must have kept the idol worship at Dan and Bethel, which would have been evil, but he didn't set up any new idol worship, which would have been worse. It is also good to note that during his reign, 2 Chronicles will tell us that some in Israel would celebrate the Passover together with Judah once again, something that hadn't happened for almost 200 years, and something that was practically forbidden under the previous kings, and the whole reason the idols at Dan and Bethel were set up in the first place. So perhaps that Hoshea allowed this is what is also meant by the writer of 2 Kings here. But as we said earlier, Tiglath-Pileser was the king of Assyria when Hoshea came to power. However, in about 727 BC, Tiglath-Pileser died, and Shalmaneser, his son, reigned in his place. This event is likely what caused Hoshea to eventually stop paying tribute to Assyria and conspire with So, king of Egypt, to help shake off the yoke of Assyria and become fully independent again. Alliances with Egypt like this is referred to by the prophet Hosea, who was contemporary with Hoshea and has been contemporary with the kings of Israel dating back to Jeroboam II. Assyria, though, was much too powerful for Hoshea, and so Shalmaneser shut Hoshea up in prison. How Shalmaneser did this is what is described in verses 5 and 6. Assyria came down to what was left of Israel, defeated it, and then came up to Samaria and besieged it for 3 years. Thus we can date the time of the beginning of this siege to be about 725-724 BC, due to its end in about 722 BC. At the end of 3 years, in the 9th year of the reign of Hoshea, counted from the very beginning, the siege was over and Israel was taken off into captivity, Hoshea included. The map on the screen now shows where the Assyrians took them, which was throughout all their territory, even down into the cities of the Medes. Thus the peoples of Israel were dispersed among the peoples of the Assyrians, and as far as a separate nation was concerned, never would return from captivity. However, that doesn't mean that 10 of the 12 tribes became lost forever, for 2 Chronicles would show us that some of these tribes escaped to Judah, while others retained their identity even into this captivity. Why do I bring this up? Because there are religious movements around the globe, including the Mormons, who focus heavily on these supposed lost tribes and create many false doctrines concerning them. These tribes were not lost, nor did they go extinct, for we read of Anna of the tribe of Asher in Luke 2, verse 36. But they were punished by God for their sins which they committed, the most grievous of which was the idolatry that they had never abandoned since the days of Jeroboam over 200 years before. Why does God hate idolatry so much? Because when man engages in idolatry, we are worshiping ourselves and our own creations instead of the actual creator of this universe, the giver of life and all blessings. Thus we're ascribing to our creations the things which God gives, including salvation. Our creations cannot give us any of these things, and as long as we think that they do, God will never accept us, for he will not accept us in a lie. It has nothing to do with God being insecure, but everything to do with God being holy, being light containing no darkness, and being a God that only speaks the truth. Think about it for a moment. If God accepted idolatry, that which ascribes to a man-made object that which only God does, what would that make God? A liar, and one who would condone lying. That is the reason that idolatry is unacceptable to God, and why he will not tolerate man in it, nor accept man in it. And so, what is the result of God not accepting us? Punishment. Either temporal punishment, or if we die in this unrepentant state, eternal punishment in hell. In the case of Israel here, it was temporal punishment, but for those who died in that state, eternal punishment would be inflicted as well come the judgment day. We'll continue discussing the captivity of Israel by Assyria, the Lord willing, in the next lesson. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of 2 Kings chapter 17, verses 13 to 23, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time.
Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.